Welcome back to Holisitc Healing Association. Today I have with me Sarah Cannata. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I mean, that is a big question, isn't it? So I'll start with, I'm in Melbourne, Australia. So I'm a big sports fan. We have Australian rules football here.
I love
So
sports.
massive, yeah, me too. Massive Essendon Bombers fan, which anyone who knows anything about AFL will be feeling sorry for me right now. So they're not the best team, haven't been the best team for a long time, but I still follow football. Aside from work, I mean, I love my writing, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on. I'm very much into strength training. So I love the gym and movement. I find it's very good for my mental health and well-being all round. Love walking in nature, reading. And I think lately, what I've been more drawn to, and this has come through the embodied processing community, is quality community. I've been quite fascinated by that over the last few years. The more I've gotten into somatic healing and embodied processing and making connections within the group, I've started to really realize. So a bit about me, I think it's a bit of a unique position that at 37, almost 38, don't have a partner, don't have kids, of course, have lovely parents, have my brother's pet dog, have a brother, have friends, all that kind of stuff. But most people my age group have kids and have a partner and they're married. What I am finding is that, yes, they do have all that, but that doesn't necessarily mean they've got quality connections. And that's something as I'm moving into midlife, which I think is bringing about lots of contemplations and questions about the second part of life. But that's what I'm really interested in now, seeking those quality connections, because I feel like even though we have technology and we're more connected than ever before. I mean, without technology, you and I wouldn't be able to be talking right now, Erin, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people are any more connected. And I think that's something that has really interested me over the last few years. And it's that interest is growing because you can have lots of people in your world and your life, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're well connected. And of course, that leads to a host of other challenging things that people may face. So I will stop there. I feel like I could go on forever.
No, but I agree. Like connection and community, I believe, plays a big role in healing. And even having one person that you feel a strong connection with that can help you heal along your journey can be significant.
And you touched on it's quality, not quantity. So
Sorry.
there's that whole quality, not quantity. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you could be in a crowd of 100 people, and lots of people have lots of friends, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're connected with any of them. And then, of course, there's other things like pets. So I've found, so my brother has a pet dog. Her name is BB. I have honestly found her to be such a healing presence in my life. I feel like sometimes pets and animals allow us to go to a place that maybe, especially if we've had trauma in our past, which of course everyone has on a different spectrum. But if you're a little bit closed off and have your walls up, like I've always been my whole life, I feel like pets are an avenue and you can be more open with them than basically anyone. So it's a really interesting space.
Because they make us feel safe and loved at once.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Dogs have always been it for me. They have given me something my whole life, a lot of love and companionship, and they've been my best friend my whole life growing up. So
Yeah.
it's
I got bitten as a kid on the knee. So I had a massive fear of dogs for most of my life until BB came into the picture. So it was quite surprising that I have made little best friends with this dog, but I just love her to bits.
it brought you healing.
Exactly. It's amazing. She did. So, and like I said, because I always had a fear of dogs, so I always had a fear of dogs and cats as a kid. So it was quite strange that I mean, she came into the family as a puppy as well. So it's definitely a relationship that has grown over time, but it was pretty surprising to me just how big a part of my life and healing she has become. Because, I mean, in terms of my resource, which of course is an embodied processing term, BB is actually my resource now.
Cool.
So it's been, yeah, pretty awesome. I love it a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually chased by a dog when I was in grade 2 by a Doberman, and my best friend made it to the house before I did and locked the door behind me. And I was
Oh
able to
no.
fit in between a little screen door and the wooden door while the dog was going at the door. They
Oh
were small
gosh.
enough to fit in between and were screaming at the and banging on the door until the mom finally came because my best friend wouldn't let me in. He thought the dog was going to get in. And
Oh
so I had a
gosh.
bit of fear myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got over it, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us about your trauma story?
Yeah. So I mean, it's an interesting one, trauma, because of course we've done EP, so we've learned that everyone has trauma somewhere along the way. And obviously it's along the spectrum. If I'm honest with you, up until about 30, so obviously I mentioned I'm 37 now, but up until 30, I would never have said that I had trauma. It was only really in the surfacing of some physical health problems in terms of I had a lot of gut issues at that time in my life. And of course, I had all of the medical tests that they ask you to do in the Western medical model when you have those kinds of issues surfacing. And I got to a point where I'd done all the tests and basically I had been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, which
Okay.
everyone who's had that diagnosis basically means that's the diagnosis you get when they can't find anything. So,
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
yeah, it is. So, and then basically because of that, I was essentially told there's really not much that we can do for you. It's just about management. So that really plunged me into this world of my own research because IBS is quite limiting in terms of life. Obviously, people have it on a different spectrum, but for me, it would impact my mornings, especially. It's very hard to have a job and do the things that you need to do as part of any job, early morning meetings, that kind of thing. So I wasn't quite thrilled with the notion of having to just live with that and manage it for my entire life. And then I really found the mind body gut connection through that work. And through that, that's how I really found my way to embodied processing and listening to Matt and Ryan. And I initially did the trauma informed coach certificate, which feels like it's a little snippet of the full embodied processing program. And from there, there were just so many different things that I was able to connect the dots with, lingering things from childhood mainly, which I think, I mean, as we know, that's where it all starts for most of us. And I think what I was able to track almost everything in my life back to was this feeling very early on. So I'm talking about 4 years old, a time when you can't really make up things. It's a time when things are just the way they are. That's how
Yeah.
it feels to me.
Right.
I was always very hyper aware that I felt like an outsider and I just didn't belong. And
That would be
basically, yeah, and it was hard because I wasn't the typical, I mean, I don't like this. I wasn't the typical girl growing up in Melbourne, Australia, was never into dolls. And like I said, I love sports. I was always a sporty kid who had more boyfriends than anything. But even with those male connections, we used to play sport and have fun. But I just never quite felt like I belonged anywhere. And that feeling just intensified and got worse as I was growing up. So, I mean, like I said, during that period until I was about 30, I would have never have said that I have trauma I come from a very nice family, parents who are always doing everything within their power to make my life better. But just that feeling of never belonging really led to a feeling of being an outsider for most of my life. And now, because I'm older, that has gotten a lot better because now I've learned, well, I don't really seek to be like anyone else because I am myself and this is it. And it's okay that I'm not like everyone else. And I don't want all the same things that everyone else does. So I feel like as I've matured and gotten older, and obviously doing this work and learning about trauma and the nervous system has helped with that as well, I've come more to a place of acceptance and knowing that, well, it can't just be me. Let's face it. It can't just be me feeling this way. So, and that's really, I think, where I've tried to take my work and my business because in a, I guess, more self-centered way, that gives me a why for why life has been like this for me. And if I can help and connect with others through writing. So, I mean, I haven't brought this up, but the one constant I've had in my whole life, lots of things have changed, has been this connection and attachment to writing. So I probably started writing, and when I say writing, I mean like journaling, expressing my feelings, that kind of thing, at around 11, 12 years old.
That's a good
So
age.
yeah, it is. And it's that age where you start having, of course, all the teenage feelings and life feels like it gets even worse because
It can be a little
you're
bit
having
awkward.
all,
Yeah.
yeah, you're having all the hormones and all the stuff that happens and all the change of life as well. I mean, you start hitting puberty and that kind of thing. So that gave me an outlet because my journal and my writing became my best friend and a form of expression. And the beautiful thing about writing, and this is what I tell people even today, if you choose to, your words can be for your eyes only. And that was just a beautiful refuge to have a notebook where I was writing and it was just for me. And if I really wanted to make sure it was just for me, I just destroyed it after. I just used to tear up pages and that kind of thing after I was done to make sure that no one else found it. But it was a real form of expression, has continued to be throughout my whole life, both personally and professionally. So I work in communications, but my love of writing is really in the personal element. It's in the, I definitely see writing as one of the most underutilized well-being tools that we basically, most of us have at our disposal on a 24/7 basis. We just don't use it.
Yeah. I know I personally, for my own journey, writing has also helped with healing. Just writing things down, filing it away, and just it's when you can't get thoughts out of your head, writing it down can help process it, can help just
Mm-hmm.
take away the thoughts and gives you a sense of relief and peace.
Yeah. And look, what I've really found now with the embodied processing is blending the two together has been a real game changer. Because what I always knew with my own writing, and then later on when I started working with clients, is that writing can be triggering. So if we are writing about painful, traumatic experiences in our past, it's almost similar to talk therapy, where
Mhm.
you're reliving the experience. And I never quite knew what to do with the emotions and the sensations and all the things that would surface whenever I was writing about it or I was with someone. And obviously, I was capable of providing support and being there with them, but I didn't really know what to do. And that's where EP has been a real game changer because now the one thing that I will do with everyone, I always say with writing, there are no rules because I genuinely believe that. When I say writing, it can look very different for different people. So we could be talking about one word, we could be talking about a paragraph, like what you did with just writing your story and filing it away. But the one thing I do consistently with absolutely everyone is the resourcing piece. Because unless they have that resource where they can go to for those islands of safety, comfort, support, opposite of overwhelm, I feel like I'm not providing a safe environment for people. And then
Makes a
all
lot
of
of
the other,
sense.
Exactly. And then all of the other techniques, the actual processing techniques, and also some other nervous system regulation techniques, I use those as I feel they might be needed during sessions. And of course, I ask people to do it outside as well, because as we know, this is not a matter of you see someone for 45 minutes every fortnight and things are going to change the whole lifestyle. So EP has been a massive game changer, even with the writing. It's really enhanced. And look, I came into EP both professionally and for personal reasons. So personally, because I was having all the gut stuff. So I thought, okay, maybe this can help with that, which it has
That's
dramatically.
awesome.
Yeah, dramatically. I mean, I feel like whenever I say this, I feel like I need to touch wood because I don't want to jinx myself. But um, if I'm nervous, I will still get the gut symptoms, and that's fairly normal because there is that connection between gut, mind. I mean, that's pretty normal, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm 100% fine. I don't even watch what foods I eat or anything like that.
And you're
So
saying embodied processing is what helped you.
in my experience, yes. Now, in reality, do I really know what it was? No, I don't. Like, I can't put my finger on, it was this at this time. It could have been everything at once. I moved houses as well within the last 12 months or so. So, environment has been a big thing for me too. I mean, I'm a massive introvert and a bit of a loner. I like my alone time. So now I'm in a place because I'm older, I can afford to live in my own house. So that has made a big difference as well because I'm just able to, I explain, I dip in and out of the world as I see fit because as an introvert, I need a lot of time to recharge. So after just the standard working week, my weekends are basically just doing all the things that I explained to you at the start that I enjoy doing, watching football, walking, going to the gym. Like I actually need that time to recharge and be okay for the next week, if that makes sense. So I can't really say, was it embodied processing? I think it helped. Was it the writing? I think it helped. Was it the change of environment? I think it helped. I'm almost at a point where I don't need to know why. I'm just thankful because I knew how bad it was and how bad it had gotten to. And to be at this place now is just, it's like I got my life back because like I said before, it was quite, I mean, it would peak and then subside, but when it was really bad, it was just so life limiting.
So it sounds like you're glad that you started your healing journey.
100%. I mean, for me, I don't want to say there weren't challenging times and there aren't challenging times because it's very much an ongoing process. It's not like as if you just turn a page and it's like, oh, I'm healed now, on to the rest of my life. But for me, I can't see myself being in this position as healthy as I am. And this is the thing with health. I mean, we often take it for granted until we don't have it. So I can't see myself being in this position. I'm just so content with life all round. So even my work, like that's a big part of my life, my work, because I feel like it has why, it has purpose. I mean, things aren't perfect, but yeah, so I mean, I've never regretted one day knowing where I am now, having started to heal. But of course, there were scary, challenging times along the way.
And were you ever nervous to start a healing journey?
Of course. I mean, by that time, especially with my gut stuff, I had literally tried everything, everything known to man, even the most strangest, outlandish things. So I'm going to be honest with you, coming into EP, it was almost like, oh, is this something else I'm going to spend a bunch of money and time, effort, energy, get my hopes up again, and it's not going to work. But I think, like I alluded to earlier in the interview, it became something much bigger than about the gut issues in the end.
How did your trauma affect your relationships with other people?
Well, I'd say it's heavily affected relationships. Relationships are dependent on being able to connect with people. And early on, I spoke about that feeling of being an outsider and almost being other in the world. So realistically, I think it's impacted every kind of relationship in my life, from friendships to romantic relationships. And there were even times when I had developed relationships, but then something would happen and it was almost like taking 10 steps back. So I think for me, as with most people, I'm guessing, relationships are a constant work in progress. However, I will say, I think it's best to know yourself first. I think that makes relationships much easier. And I will say, when I was younger, it upset me a lot more that I didn't have all these relationships in my life, friendships, that kind of thing that other people around me seem to have. Whereas now, as we spoke about earlier, I'm not looking for quantity, I'm looking for quality. So I could count them on one hand, people in my life who I would consider quality connections, and that's enough for me at this point in my life. Like I said, I'm very introverted, so I don't need to be around people constantly, but I feel like there is a massive focus in this society on romantic relationships, which I have nothing against. However, I don't think there's enough focus on understanding and knowing ourselves first. Because in my view, if you don't have a good understanding of what your needs are and how you tick and you work, and I think this trauma work, nervous system work is fantastic for that, because you really have to feel into yourself how you work, not only on a cognitive and mental level, but how your body works and what your body responds to. If you don't understand that, I can't see how you can make quality connections with anyone, friendship wise or romantically.
Makes sense. So healing yourself, learning about yourself, what makes you tick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're able to have healthier relationships and be able to connect with
Mm-hmm.
people better.
Yeah, 100%.
And when you said taking 10 steps back, what do you mean?
Mhm. Well, as an introvert, I feel like every time I start trusting someone and then something happens, doesn't matter whose fault it is, whether it's mine or theirs, I almost retreat to this point where I feel like, oh, what's the point of trying with anyone, basically? And then it takes me like a good few months to give anyone else a chance, which of course you need to do in relationships, because there's that pull of give and take, give and take. And if there's no trust, there is no relationship. Doesn't really matter what kind of relationship you're talking about. But I think what I have learned mostly is that on my end, I have to at least be willing to trust people and to not always think that something in the relationship is going to happen, and almost feel like, okay, well, when are they going to screw me over or something like that? I have to go into it knowing that this person in front of me has nothing to do with that person 10 years ago who might have done X, Y, and Z. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So that's logical, which is important.
Yeah.
It's also, though, important to feel it in the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both, and to process if we're struggling with trust. I know one time in my life I was struggling with trust after I was strangled. It took time to trust men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also processing it through the body, right? Processing
Mm-hmm.
what happened, um, and healing. And so we're able to move forward and trust.
Mm-hmm. And also self-trust. So trusting what you're feeling as
Oh,
well. So
self-trust
when
is
you're
huge.
getting,
Yes.
yeah, when you're getting those little signs about people, those little warning signs, or even just, we've all had this experience where you walk into a room and you feel like something's off, but then equally you meet someone you've never met before and there's something about them that makes you feel like, well, I feel like I've known this person for 10 years. Actually, feeling it is one thing, and then trusting it is another thing.
Makes sense. And I've also experienced that in my life, that there's just been times in my life, because I would say in a sense I can be too trusting on average. But there's been times in my life with only a few people and only on certain circumstances that it's like everything in my body is screaming that I am not safe. And I think in those situations, it's also important to listen to your body, because you're picking up on something, right? It doesn't have to make logical sense. Sometimes it's just important to listen.
100%.
And what advice do you have for our viewers?
Never give up. Whatever position or situation you're watching this and find yourself in, always have faith that there is something out there for you that will help. Because without that, I never would have found embodied processing. I never would have embarked on this work. And I think the biggest part of this journey has been meeting like-minded people like yourself, Erin. And there's a bunch of other people in that closed Facebook group that feel like they have walked similar paths. And that feeling of isolation that I had once upon a time isn't as strong as it was. So be open to healing, be open to other things, and never give up on yourself. I think that's the most important thing across the board that I would say to someone. Never give up on yourself.
I love it. Never give up. That's a good attitude. Never give up on yourself. Because if you never give up, you're going to move forward. It's when you give up, it's the end, right? If you never give up, you just keep on going. It's, and sometimes you need to take those times to just break and give yourself the self-care and what you need, and provide for yourself what you need, but never give up on yourself.
Yeah. And look, I think we've all, especially business is difficult. I've learned a lot of lessons, and to me now, the only failure in life, like true failure, is giving up. It's never over until you give up. When you give up, then it's over. But every day, I mean, of course you're going to feel frustrated. Of course you're going to have moments of despair. That's all part of being human. But at the end of the day, you've got one body, you've got, as far as we know, one life. So you may as well make it as good as possible and never give up on yourself. That's how I see it.
I agree, because you can keep on moving forward, and you may fall, but you can get up and move forward again. And when you get up and move forward again, you're making progress. And you never know what's going to happen and what's going to come along, what opportunities and what's going to happen. And I also agree with you, Sarah, that community is critical, and it's so important. And when you're healing with others that are healing is part of a journey, that can be so empowering. And thank you so much for joining us today. I really value that you were able to join us, and I value that you were able to take your time to give us your advice and your knowledge.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.